Welcome to the Transportation Overview of Autodesk Infrastructure Modeler 2012. In this video, I'm going to take you through building an infrastructure modeler project using transportation and GIS data. So the agenda is just a basic general overview of the product. I'm going to show you how to create the project. We're going to go over data sources and how to attach them. Next we'll go over feature creation, how to actually create extra data inside of Infrastructure Modeler, and then styles, followed by proposals, and finally output and interoperability. So what is Infrastructure Modeler? Well, it's a 3D modeling software that consumes many of the typical types of GIS and civil data available today. It allows you to quickly put all this data together and visualize your designs and your proposals in a short amount of time. Project creation. So first we need to discuss how the projects are created and where they're going to be located. And then we need to set a base coordinate system on our project. Okay, so the base coordinate system is going to be the coordinate readout that we see on the screen. And then everything else will be transformed to that coordinate system on the fly. And then finally we'll discuss project extents. So let's begin by creating a project. I've already got Infrastructure Modeler open, so let's start by creating one by selecting File, New, and then we need to browse to the location or the folder that we want to actually select. And what's going to happen is it's going to create a small SQLite database inside of this folder, and then another series of subfolders inside of this that captures all of the data. We're going to give it a name. I'm going to call this one Transportation Overview. So we can also use a schema or template file to further customize our beginning project. We're just going to use the default one for today. Next we need to set our coordinate system. You can see here it defaults to lat long 84. What we're going to do is simply click this little globe, and then we're going to scroll down to USA, and this one happens to be in New Mexico. We're going to use a Harn projection, basically a state plane, a modified state plane. It's going to be central zone, and we're going to use US foot. So we simply double click on the projection that we want. And the next thing I want to do is define a city extent. And you don't have to do this now, you can do it later. But what I like to do is go ahead and define a cropping region. So when we attach data, everything will automatically be cropped to this region. We're not going to see everything outside of it. Okay, so this will help make the model faster, and it's really just going to help us to look at the intended area. So we can toggle this on, and then you can either key in the coordinates, and the coordinates here are going to be the coordinate of the coordinate system you just referenced, or you can load the extents from a file. So you can select about any type of file you can attach. So whether you want to use a DEM or an aerial image or something like that for your extents, you can do that. I already have a shape file with my extents set up. So I'm simply going to browse to that and drill into here, and we're going to select our extents shapefile, click open. It's going to read the coordinates, and then it's basically just going to set the coordinates for us. Simply click OK, and then what it's going to do, it's going to start creating that database and creating all the linkages, and then also create the subdirectory. So while that's doing that, let's go back to our PowerPoint and discuss a little more. So project creation, we just went through that. I showed you how to create the project. Next we're going to discuss data sources and data types. So we basically have two different types of data sources. We have a database and an independent file attachment. So you can connect to the typical type databases, Oracle, SQL, WFS, or generic, or you can just simply attach through independent or disparate files out there on a drive. And so the types of files you can actually attach are 3D models. That's going to include Max and FBX models. You can attach DWG files, and so the DWG here, it's going to be a 2D line work file. Okay, we can't have 3D models inside of the DWG. Can't have XREFs. Can't have a lot of blocks and things like that inside there. It's just got to be basic line work that we're going to attach. Think of it more like a different type of shape file. Next we have our IMX file, and that's going to be exported from Civil 3D 2012. There's a plugin for Infrastructure Modeler. And what that'll do is allow us to export our corridors and our terrain models automatically. Next we have our land XML file, and through the land XML you can actually export terrain models as well to attach. Next we have raster data, and although this says raster, it actually includes a little bit more. It's going to include your terrains as well. So when you want to attach a terrain model other than through land XML or IMX, you're going to do it through raster. That's going to include like DEMs, the geotiffs that have the attribute elevations attached to it as well. Binary terrain files, things like that are all going to come through raster, as well as your typical raster images. Your aerial images are going to be attached to the raster method as well. Next we have SDF, which is basically the Autodesk GIS format, followed by the SHP or the shape file, the Esri shape file, and then finally we have the SQLite. So you can attach another Infrastructure Modeler database, and you can pull data straight from there as well. So now that we've discussed the data sources and data types, let's move back to our project and see if it's done created. You can see there it's opened up the project for us, and we're left with a blank screen. And you notice here it's opened up the data sources for us, so we can go ahead and start attaching data. But before we do that, let's just quickly go over the interface of Infrastructure Modeler. You can see here it's fairly simple. We have approximately 8, 9 buttons at the top here. And those are going to control the type of data that's in here, what it's going to look like, allow you to highlight different things, and then also control styles. So I'll start going over these as we come to them. We also have our tool strip here, and that's going to allow you to select different things, create features, change the viewing dynamics, and then also the show motion. That's how you're going to create your videos through here. Alright, so let's start attaching data. To do that, you simply, if data source isn't up, you just simply click data sources, and then you can attach in the two different methodologies here. This is the independent file attachment method, or here is the database. Okay, we're not going to be using a database in this lecture. We're just going to use independent file attachment. So the first thing I want to do, let's go ahead and attach raster, except for I'm going to attach the terrain models first. So I'm simply going to drill into where I have my terrain models stored. And I have two DEMs here. I'm going to attach both of them. Click open. And you notice what happens here. It imports the data, but it doesn't show it. Okay, that's because we need to actually configure it and tell the software what it is and how to use it. So we're just simply double click on the terrain file. And notice here we already have an exclamation point. This DEM file didn't contain a coordinate system, so we need to set it. So you can simply just choose the coordinate system here, as we did with the base coordinate. So this one, in fact, is a UTM type file. So I'm just going to simply on the left-hand side scroll down to UTM and add 83. And this one's going to be in zone 13, and it's meters. So it's just going to be the plane 13. I'm going to double click here. And you notice we have a drop down here. This is going to store the last 4 used coordinate systems that you selected. Okay, so that's going to help you through the project to quickly select coordinate systems, not have to drill back through that large list. Alright, the next thing I want to do here is go ahead and select raster. You can see here we can clip it to a model extent if we want. We can also modify the scale. Okay, so I'm just going to simply adjust this, and notice here we have a close and refresh, we have an OK, and then of course we have a cancel. What the close and refresh will do is go ahead and refresh the model. If I just hit OK, it's going to allow it to be completely configured, but it's not going to tell the model to refresh. So let's go ahead and do a close and refresh and give it a few moments. So it's going to process the data, and it's going to start adding it in. And you notice here we get this defined boundary with this hourglass shape in the middle. Well, if I continue to zoom in, you'll see that it's actually going to split the model up. It's basically creating a binary tree, and you can see parts of the model are already updated, so we can continue to work, and it's going to use multi-threading and send out other parts of this model to your other processors while you're working in the background. Okay, so this is using newer technology and helps make the modeling quite a bit faster. So you can see here we've got a mountainous region. This is just simply the terrain that we're looking at. This doesn't have an image or anything on top of it, but you can already start making out what we're looking at. So let's just talk about, for a moment, you can see the model's completely finished there. Let's talk about how to move around in the model. Okay, so first of all, you saw me zoom in and out. I'm just using my wheel mouse to zoom in and out. And then to pan, you just simply use your right mouse button and hold it down. Okay, so that's a little bit different than AutoCAD that we're most used to. And then to 3D orbit, which you're going to be doing a lot of in here, you simply hold the left mouse button down and it will orbit about the middle of the screen. You can see, we'll zoom in here. You can see we can quickly orbit around and move all around the file. So after everything's already created, you can see it's very, very fast. And you notice we also have our cube. Okay, this is very similar to what's in AutoCAD here. If we want to move to the top, we can do that. Alright, if we want to do a zoom extents and put us in the top view, we simply click the home button, or you can click the home button on your keyboard and it will do the same thing. So if you get turned upside down and turned around, you can simply click the home button. It'll bring you back to where you need to go. Alright, so that's our terrain. Now let's attach some aerial imagery. So simply going to select raster again, and I'm going to move up one location. And let's just talk about my structure here. You notice this is a structure that I made that just helps me know what I'm looking for. I typically create like a GIS folder and then have subfolders underneath that delineating what the type of data is so that I can quickly find it and package it up and send it to somebody if I need to. So now I'm going to go to my imagery file. And you notice I have some ECWs here, but I also have a SID folder. And I have a single SID in here, and we're going to attach this Mr. SID file. I'm going to click open, and you notice again it attaches it, but we need to configure it. Again, this one didn't have the coordinate system, but this is actually another UTM file, so we're just going to select the UTM since it was there. We go to raster, tell it the classification if we need to use that classification later for querying, and then go ahead and do a close and refresh. And again, it's going to attach it and it's going to drape it automatically over our terrain model. Okay, again, now you can see that the data is starting to be attached and it's working in the background to basically dice this up into smaller usable pieces and send it out to your other processors. And so if we zoom in here, you can start seeing some of the data is already attached. So we're starting to get a usable model here. We've got some terrain and we've got some aerial imagery. What we want to do now is actually add in some additional aerial imagery. And so what we're going to do is later on we're going to create a road through this rural area in here as a connector. Okay, but to do that I want to add in some higher resolution aerial imagery in here so we know better what we're working with. So again, I'm going to attach my raster data, and I'm going to select all of these ECW files, click open. Again, they're not configured, so I simply do a double click. I set the coordinate system here. These are actually in a HARN. Go to my raster, tell it that it's aerial. Apologize for resizing this dialog all the time, but I'm working in confined space here. Do a close and refresh. And again, it's going to process, and you'll see in a moment this area right here is actually going to update with the higher resolution imagery. There you can see our data starting to come in now, and you can definitely see that this image is different. It was taken at a different time of the year, obviously. So let's zoom in here and just take a look, and I'll show you the differences in this imagery. So you can see, I can clearly see this house and this tennis court and this nice pool here, and just right across the street where the aerial imagery is a little bit different, it's much fuzzier. So you can see here, this is going to allow us to better attach roads and make just better design decisions because of the higher resolution imagery. So now we've got a pretty good model here. If I tip it up here, you can see it's looking pretty good. We got our nice new aerial imagery in there, but we don't have any real vector data. So what I want to do now is attach some shape files, that contain our roadway and our railway data. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. This time, instead of raster, I'm going to do shapefile. I'll browse up to my transportation, and I'm going to select my road inventory. And again, it's going to bring it in. We're going to configure it. And in this case, I'm going to set the type to roads. Okay, and that's going to change the dialog for us. The next thing we need to do is actually change what it's going to look like, okay, or set the style. And in this instance, I'm just going to use a single style for all the roads. If you want to get a little more in depth here, you can create what's called a rule style, and you can query on different attributes and change the different style on the fly for depending on what the attributes are. So in this case, I'm going to set a single style for all the roads. Go to my geolocation, and this coordinate system is actually filled out for us. It was in the file. Our source here, we're going to drape it on top of the surface, and that should be good. Now we'll simply do a close and refresh again, and you'll see it again. This is going to refresh the model, and you'll see most of the roads here are going to come in that we see on top of our imagery, and they're going to lay pretty close to on top, but it's going to be vectorized data. Okay, now we've got our roads in here. Let's zoom in and take a look at them, see what they look like. So as we zoom in here, you can definitely see that this is vector type data. Notice the turnouts. Everything's automatically done for us. So they're automatically radiused. We've got intersecting roads here. I can select them. We basically have 3 roads coming to the same point. It's automatically going to do the turnouts for us. If we zoom in here, you can see this is definitely in 3D. We've got our curb and gutter, our asphalt, our green space, and since this is New Mexico, they're probably not going to have grass in there, and we'll address that in a minute. We'll change that to some gravel or some sand. We've got our sidewalk. Okay, so let's zoom out, take a look, see how much road we actually have. You can see it's got pretty good coverage. So we'll zoom into this subdivision and just take a quick look. You'll notice all the streets lay pretty close to on top of the aerial imagery. See our nice mountainous region in the background, our blue sky. Speaking of sky, you can actually set different types. You simply go to View, Sky Settings. We've got some default skies here. I'm just using the default one today, but you can do a cloudy one or evening or full moon. Depending on the different types of videos you may want to cut, or if you want to make it night or day to show that difference, you can do that here as well. Okay, so now we have our roads. Let's go ahead and zoom out, and we'll attach our railways. I believe the rail is going to be in this area, somewhere in here. So again, I'm just going to do an attachment here, do our railroad. We'll configure the data. We'll tell it that it's going to be railways. We'll set the style. Notice here it's changed our styles to railway styles. We're just going to do the default one. Tell it our source. We're going to drape. Make sure so the coordinate system is filled out. And we'll do a close and refresh. Give this a moment to process. I believe there's only 2 lines here in the rail, so it should be fairly quick. Okay, so let's actually find what this rail is. We'll zoom in here and see if we can't spot it. And if we can't spot it, let me show you another method of highlighting something. We'll just go to Model Explorer here, and I'm just going to simply go over to my railways and hit the highlight button. You can see there it turned it pink. Now we can zoom in and check out our railway. Notice what happened when this railroad crossed this road. It automatically put in a railroad crossing for us. So this is all automated. That's part of the intersection in the railway. So it knows when it crosses something like a road, it needs to put in that railroad crossing. Pretty slick. Alright, let's attach one more thing here. We're going to attach some more shapefile. And those are going to be actually water data. We've got a couple different types of water data. I'm just going to do the linear waters for right now. We'll open those up. And we'll configure each one of them individually. Tell it that it's a water area. We'll select the water area. And since this is linear here, we're actually going to add in a buffer width. If we're selecting an area, we don't have to do this. So if this is an area type closed polygon shapefile, you wouldn't need a buffer width, but we're going to buffer this one. Notice this one's a lat long 84 coordinate system. So it's doing the transformation on the fly. I'm going to drape, and then we'll do a close and refresh. Alright, and go ahead and configure this last one in the same manner. Water areas, picker style, buffer width, source, drape, and close and refresh. Okay, so now you can see we actually have our waterways in here. So let's zoom in and take a look at some of this. Notice that some of these may not be active. Okay, so this is just data from a shapefile from USGS or for whoever it comes from. Notice here it looks like we've got some water movement. And I'm actually going to show you how to create other waterways later on. So we'll zoom out here, and I believe over in this area here we actually have one coming through the mountain. I zoom in here and let it refresh. There we have it. So you can see this one's coming right through the mountain area. Okay, I'm going to back up and talk about the attribution inside of a shapefile for a minute, or in any file really, database. So I'm going to go back to our road inventory, and I'm going to reconfigure it. I'm just going to simply double click on our road inventory. It's going to allow us to reconfigure it if we want to. What I'm going to do, notice we have this name here. I'm going to simply hit this drop down, and it's automatically going to bring up the attributes from this file for us. I'm going to simply select street and do a close and refresh. And I'm going to show you what that's going to allow us to do. Okay, so now that's refreshed, let's go find a street. I'm simply going to select this street here, go to Properties, and notice what we have here. It's automatically filled in the name for us. So if we have more attributes, we can add in all that information. And that's not just for doing properties, we can actually query on that. So for instance, I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to deselect that road, go to my Model Explorer, and notice what I can do here. I can do roads, I can do a right click, and I can do a select by filter. And if you've ever used AutoCAD Map or Civil 3D and used the querying function, you're going to notice the similarities here. So I know what the query is going to be on here. I'm just going to do a name equals single quote. I'm going to paste that in, take my space out on the front, and I'll do a validate here. Expression's valid, and I'll just do a OK. Notice what happens. Automatically it highlighted this road for us. So if we're wanting to deal with a certain type of road, or we want to query on a different attribute, a description, things like that, we can do that here and do a selection, and then we can change the style or delete it or do whatever we need to do there through those queries. So those query tools are very powerful, and in a separate video I'm going to go over more on how to use those. So let's just do a zoom extent here, and let's head back over to our PowerPoint now that we've got a lot of our data attached. So again, I showed you the data sources and the different data types, and we attached a few. Okay, so let's talk about interoperability for a minute. So you can see Infrastructure Modeler can consume a lot of data, but later on I'm going to show you how you can send the data out. So this is a round trip. Okay, so your data is not ending right here, and the design that you do in Infrastructure Modeler, it's not going to end there. You can move it forward, so you don't have to worry about the work that you're doing in here being lost. Okay, so you can see we take it in from multiple products using FDO, LandXML, Civil 3D, FBX, shapefile, all those different things. We can also send out FBX or through FDO, and I'm going to show you that a little later on. So the next thing I want to cover is feature creation. And when I talk about feature creation, I'm talking about actually creating things inside of Infrastructure Modeler, not just importing them. So we've got several different types of things we can create. We can create roads, railroads, trees, water areas, buildings, land cover. And what land cover is basically a way of masking the current features out there or the current imagery and creating your own terrain so that you can basically add new elements on top of it. And then finally, furniture. And what furniture is basically cars or people, signage, anything like that. That's what furniture is. So let's move on to Infrastructure Modeler and start creating some items. So remember at the beginning of this I told you we're going to create a road that's going to connect this rural area up to here. So what we want to do first is just zoom into our general area, and I'm going to turn off the Model Explorer, and then we're going to go to Create Edit Features, and you'll notice we get the same types that I just went over. We've got roads, railways, trees, water areas, buildings, land cover, and then finally furniture. So we're simply just going to click on the roads, and I'm going to click again, and what it's going to do is going to throw out this little toolbar and allow us to pick the most commonly used roads. Okay, or we can drill right into the style catalog and pick the one we want. So I'm going to scroll down and pick this sidewalk, double click, and now I'm going to zoom into this area over here. And what I'm going to do is simply get really close to the intersection and start my road there. So I'm going to simply do a left click and then zoom out and start dragging my road up. And notice here it's automatically going to create curves, so it's going to create a splined road for us. And I'm just going to create a road right through here, not really worried about the geometry. We can modify the way it looks after we've created it. So I'm going to zoom into this area here, and notice what happens when I get close to the intersection. It basically it snaps to it for me. So then I get close and then do a double click, a double left click, and it's going to finish the road out. And just give it a moment here to regenerate the road and the terrain. And notice what happens. I'm just going to deselect the road. Automatically created all the turnouts for us. Okay. So let's see what the other end of this road looked like. Again, automatic turnouts. So that's all done for us. Well, what about editing? How do we edit this road? Well, we simply select the road. You'll notice it'll highlight. And then we go back to our Create Edit. And then we're going to get grips at every single place that we clicked on the alignment to place it. We're going to get a grip there. And so this cube, it looks like a square right now, but if I turn it up isometric, it's actually a cube. It's going to allow us to move it in an XYZ direction. So notice here we're getting automatic feedback on our segment length and our delta Z. So I'm just going to move this, and I'm going to let off. And you're going to notice it's going to regenerate the road. So I'm going to zoom in here, and it's moved the road for us. Well, what if you just wanted to move it in a Z direction? You know, basically you want to elevate the road. Well, what I like to do is I will 3D orbit and then select the road, and then notice what you get. You get these cones on top of the cubes, and those allow you just to move in a Z direction. So I'm just going to drag the road up. I'll drag it up here about 30 feet, and I'll let off, and then allow it to regenerate. And you'll notice we get a massive amount of fill in this area. So it's automatically doing the filling, and it's dragging the road up. Okay, now I want to show you how to do some trees and the water areas and the buildings. So I'm going to move into this area right here, this home. You notice here we've got a bunch of basically scrub brush, and then we've got some other trees or bushes in this area. So let's place some trees. So I'm simply going to select Create Tree Group, and we're going to get the most commonly used. I'm just going to open up the style catalog. And you see all the different trees that are available to us. So let's pick a small shrub. And then what I'm going to do here is start creating a polygonal area. And then I'm just going to double click here. And then notice This probably isn't the one we wanted to use, but it basically randomized small shrubs in this area for us. So the density here is probably not what we want. Let's create some trees in this area as well. So I'm going to pick this dark green tree, and I'm going to do the same thing. Just draw another polygonal shape. And there you can see it's randomized trees in here for us. If we just want to place a single tree, you just do a double click. So I'm just going to do a double click right here, and notice it places a single tree in here. So that's how easy it is to place trees or foliage. We can either do a single placement, or we can do a polygonal placement with randomization of trees. Alright, the next thing I want to cover is water areas. And unfortunately, this doesn't have very many water areas. I believe if we zoomed out and went and looked at a golf course over here, there is some water areas. Here's one. So here's a pond here, and what I want to do is digitize this pond in. So I'm simply going to select the Create Water Areas, and notice we have two water areas at this time. We've got a default water, and we've got a spline that does an embankment. So I'm just going to select the default, and I'm just going to come through here and start basically creating a shape through here, and it's going to spline the shape for me, so I don't have to hit every single point. Go ahead and finish this up, and double click to finish. And notice what we get here. We get a nice little water area there. Well, what if we wanted to add a point in here? So I'm going to go back to the edit point. Notice we have the set amount of grips. What we can do is we can hold down the Alt button and do a left click, and it's going to automatically add in a point for us, so we can add additional points later on. And if you want to take out a point, you just select Shift and left click, and it's going to remove that point. So that's going to allow you to add additional points and delete additional points from your features. Okay, the next thing I want to go over is the actual buildings. So let's come over here and let's just place a house in here. So we got some of these nice houses in here. Let's see if we can place a house with the same type of roof structure in here. So I'm going to place the building, and you notice we have all these different types. I'm going to go through and open the style catalog and just show you some of the things that we have. So I'm going to go to the brick facade, scroll down, see what we have, and we'll just go with this one here. What we're going to do is we're simply going to create a polygonal shape through here. What I'm going to do is try to follow the outline of this roof. That should give us something close. Notice what we have. We got a 3-story building here. That's probably not what we want. So what we do, we just simply select the building, we grab the top height, and we move it down. So now we're looking at like a story and a half. Well, this is a flat top building. How do we modify that? How do we get those how do we change the pitch of the roof? So I'd simply select the building and then go to Properties. And then notice here, we've got a roof slope. I'm just going to change this to 20 and click Update. And then notice we put in a 20-degree slope on this. Well, what about the material? I'll simply select it again. And let's pick a different material. We're on roadway styles here, but something like this will probably look pretty good. I'll do an update. And now you notice we've got a roof type material. And we could add shingles in if we wanted to add a shingle material into our styles, but that'll work for right now. So let's continue to add some other things to this. I mentioned land cover. So notice here we have, looks like some sort of trailer or building or bus in that area right there. Let's move this and basically obliterate that. So I'm going to select the Create Coverage polygon, and then I'm going to open the Style Catalog and see if we can't find something. I've got some dark sand. Let's see if that's going to work. So again, I'm just going to come through here. And you can see here that just gives us a way to obliterate something in the image so that we can continue to build on top of it for our presentation, so that people won't be saying, well, are you going to be removing that building, or what are you going to do with that? So we can take out any question of what we're doing there or any confusion. Alright, the next thing I want to show you is some of the furniture items. So I'm just going to click the fire hydrant or the insert furniture, and notice here we've already got some people, some cones, other things like that in there. I'm going to open up the Style Catalog and notice all the different things that we have. Well, let's go to the construction. Notice we got some dump trucks, so if we want to do a construction staging, we could do that. Let's go to traffic and barriers. Here's a stop sign. So let's place a stop sign right here. So now we've got our stop sign, but it appears to be the wrong direction. So we need to rotate that. So I'm just simply going to select it and go to our edit. And notice what we get here. We get some different ways to edit this thing. Notice we have an XYZ type direction. So if we want to move this in just a X direction, we can grab that bar. Or if we want to move it in a Y direction, we can do that. And the same thing with the Z. Or we can grab the square and move it in any direction we desire. But that's not what we really want to do. We actually want to rotate this. So I'm going to grab one of these rotation handles and just simply drag it into rotation. You can see now we've got a stop sign here. And let's add another one over here. Again, we have the same problem. We'll just select it. Go to our edit and rotate about. So now we've got a couple stop signs in here. Well, what about cars? Let's make this intersection look really good. So I'll go back to insert city furniture, go to my style catalog, and let's go to vehicles. So we've got a pretty good selection of vehicles here. So let's just put a Volvo in here. Just double click on the road, and again, it needs to be rotated. So I'm just gonna. It's already highlighted for me. So I just go to my edit, and we're just gonna rotate this to the intersection. There you can see our vehicles now placed in the model. Okay, well, let's take a look at this house again. So let's place a person over here by his house, and let's show him what this new intersection is going to look like. So I'm going to go back to my Insert City Furniture, go to my Browse, and we'll go to People. And we've got a person here, so we'll place him, and we'll just double click right here, and I'm just going to simply rotate him around. So if we're wanting to simulate what this new intersection is going to look like from this person's viewpoint, we could easily show that. So moving on, so let's go back to our rail here. I never showed you how to do that. So I believe we had some rail over in this area. Here it is. Let's just show you how to tie in some other rail type items. So I'm going to go to my Create Railways, And notice we've got a couple of different things. We've got a railway tunnel, we have a regular railway, and we have a railway bridge. So let's see if we're crossing something. Well, we're crossing this river, or this creek at this location here, and we've already just done our typical crossing there. But let me show you how to do a bridge. So first I'm going to start off with just your regular railway, and I'm basically going to tie into this position here. Start leaving the railway, and about right here I'm going to end this. And what I want to do is move this. Let's just move him about, let's say 15 feet in the air. Notice, so now we've got some lift. And for a rail we'd actually have to start this way back, but for this purposes it'll work. And now what I want to do is, let's continue on with that same road about right here. And we'll just tie him back in. And notice what happens when we do our tie-ins. We've got automatic turnouts for us for our rail. So going back to this, let's do the same thing for this guy. We're going to move him up. Just move him about, the same, about 15 foot in the air. So now we're ready for our bridge. So I'm simply going to create the bridge by selecting the different style. And I'm just going to click once in the center of this road. And click, and notice what's happened here. It's automatically trying to snap to this other side. So I just double click, and notice what we've got: an automatic railroad bridge. It gives us a pylon right in the middle, and by modifying the styles we can actually change the spacing of all that as well. Okay, so let's move back to our intersection now. And you can see in just a few minutes we can create a nice visual presentation that we can take to a public hearing, or just to show the community what something may look like. So if we want to create a video later on to show the public and post up, we could do that as well. Alright, so again, let's go back to home and move over to our PowerPoint. So I took you through feature creation of all these different types, and you can see how easy it is to create those things and to modify and manipulate, to change different parts of them around, to move people around. Anything like that can be done here very quickly and efficiently. So the next thing I want to go over is styles. And basically styles control the way the elements are displayed. So you can actually control the import. I showed you when I picked the roadway styles and the water styles, things like that. You actually have to pick what it's going to look like for the default view, and then you can go and modify later. You can actually modify the styles or add new styles. To change the style, you basically open up the style catalog and you drag on a new one, and it will automatically change it. And you can also use the style rules to automate style assignment, and that's basically using the attributes to define how something will be stylized. So let's move back to Infrastructure Modeler and go back to our intersection here. And let's just change something. So notice here we have this car. Let's say we didn't want to use that car. Well, I can simply open up my style palette, and I'm going to close the properties right now for space. And I'm going to go to Model, and then go to Vehicles. And let's change this to a red station wagon. So I simply drag it over to the car, and notice what happens. Automatically changes to a red station wagon. Alright, well what about this house? What do you want to do there? Well, if we want to change it to a different type of building, simply drag it onto, we got two different methods. If you want to change a single side, you can drag it onto the one side and it's just going to change it. Or if we drag it onto the roof, it will change all sides of the building. So that's how we can drag and drop and move styles. Well, what about this roadway? I noticed we got a 2-lane road. What if we wanted to change the way that thing looked, or the lanes even? Well, let me show you that. So I'm going to scroll down here to road. And notice here, what if we want to change this to a boulevard type road? I simply drag the style to the road. And there, it's automatically done for us. So now we have a boulevard type road with roads, complete with roads and light poles. Now our stop sign's in the middle of the road, so I'll just select him, go to an edit here, and just move him over to this area. That's how easy changing styles is. Well, I mentioned earlier about this green grass. Let's change that to more of a sand type or rock type color. Notice here that's this sidewalk style. So when I double click over in the style palette, it's actually going to bring up the style editor for me. And I don't want to go over too much in here. I'm going to do that in another video, but I'm going to show you how to quickly change something. Notice here it tells us the type of material group that it uses. So it's using street materials too. And then notice this green space. The top surface category is called green space. So I basically need to go to street materials 2, find the green space, and change the way it looks. I need to go to my material group, find my street materials 2, double click. I'll find my green space. Notice it says manicured grass. So I'm simply going to double click here. And let's change that to a sand light. I'll click OK. And then I need to do a model refresh. And to do that, I can either click F5 or go to a View, Regenerate. Give this a moment to process. So now that it's done regenerating, let's zoom back into our roads and see what we're left with. So you can see we can immediately see a difference. So now we've got a more sand type green space. So you can see that allows us to quickly change the way these styles look. So let's say we wanted to actually change one of these roads from a 2-lane to a 4-lane. What could I do there? Well, we could either go into the road. Notice I'll double click on the sidewalk here. Notice what we have here. We got a number of driving lanes, forward and reverse, forward and backward. So that's basically telling us we're going to have a 2-lane road. Well, we could either create a whole bunch of different styles with different lanes, or the easier way is to select the road, go to Properties. Notice here we've got a number of lanes forward and backward. So right now it's defaulted. There's nothing in there because it's using the default style. So if I change this to 2 and 2 and then do an update, you'll notice we automatically get a 4-lane road. Running out of space here, I'll close this. So just as easy as that, I've changed this road from a 2-lane to a 4-lane without changing the style. Okay, so the lanes forward and backward is just the default. So when I create a new road using that style, it will default to that many lanes. But I can easily go back and modify how many lanes per road. Or if we have an attribute, we can use it to control that as well. So if we have an attribute telling us how many lanes, we can map that over and it will automatically change it for us. Okay, so let's move back to our PowerPoint now. So I've gone over a little bit about styles. I didn't go real in depth, and I think that could use a whole video by itself on how to manipulate or how to create new styles. So I'm not going to cover a whole bunch of that. The next thing I want to go over are what's called proposals. And they basically allow you to manage multiple designs at a time. You can get real-time feedback on the things that you've created or removed from the original, and you can also merge proposals together. So let me show you that. So I'm going to close the Properties dialog and open up Proposals. And notice here, automatically, we get this master proposal. Okay, so this is the default that's created in there. If I create another proposal on top, it's going to be basically a delta difference from this current proposal. So let me show you that. I'm just going to simply click New, give it a name, and I'll say Proposal 1. Click OK. Okay, and now what it's basically allowed us to do is create differences from that master. So if I want to come through here and let's say add another road, let's connect another road from here to here. So I'm going to take this default style. I'm just going to do a real quick, I'm just going to click from here, do one in the middle, zoom into here, double click. And hopefully, yep, that intersection worked fine, and this intersection worked fine. So now we've got a new road in here. Well, if we want to show the difference between our original and our new proposal, we can come down through here and you can already see how many roads I've added. The added length, the added area. Okay, it continues to go farther and farther. Well, if we wanted to do something a little bit different than this one, if we wanted to have 2 or 3 different proposals for this crossroad, we could do that. So I'm just going to simply go back to my master, give this a moment, and you can see the road's automatically removed for us. Okay, it's still in there, it's still in that other proposal. Alright, so let's say we wanted to have a road somewhere along in here. So let's create another proposal. We'll call this one Proposal 2. Click OK. And we'll add in another road. We're just going to do this one down here. Do the same type of thing. And we've got our new road in here. So now you can see we've got another road added in with the amount length. Okay, so this is Proposal 2. Notice as I've dropped down here, we've got a master, a Proposal 1, and a Proposal 2. Well, let's see what it would look like if we merge Proposal 1 into Proposal 2. So I'm simply going to go to a Merge Proposals, and it says, what proposal do you want to merge into this one? I'm going to select Proposal 1. Okay, this isn't going to affect Proposal 1 in any way whatsoever, only Proposal 2. So I'm going to take whatever I did in Proposal 1, I'm going to bring it in Proposal 2. And you can see, now I've got both crossroads in this proposal. So you can see how effectively these proposals are going to allow you to make design changes quickly and efficiently, move in between those designs. Okay, moving back to the PowerPoint, I showed you a little bit about proposals, and again, you can do a lot more in-depth things than what I just showed you as well. Now you want to show the output or the interoperability, how we can tie everything back together. So we can take either still images, we can create videos from what's called show motion, or we can even connect directly to this SQLite database through another software. So let me show you how to do that. I might close this proposal. And let's say we want to come over here to where this guy's standing again. We'll zoom into him. Let's say we want to take an actual screenshot of this, but we don't want to have all this stuff in the way. We don't want to see all these toolbars. Okay, so we go up to File, select Camera Snapshot, and we want to browse to the file that we want to call it. And we'll save there. And we're going to use this aspect ratio, that's fine. Hit a save. And let's go take a look. So now we have a snapshot of what it looks like from this guy's point of view. Of course, we can change the resolution, make it look a little bit better if we want to. But that shows you how quick and easy it is to do basically a screenshot without all the clutter in the way. The next thing I want to show you is the show motion. And that's what this type of technology is called. It allows you to create videos quite effectively. So I'm going to zoom out. Let's start over here somewhere. So I want to start out in the mountains. Somewhere right about here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the show motion panel. And notice what we get here. We get this little hint of a button. So I'm going to push this create new sequence. And then we can either do basically a sequence of shots with transitions in between, or we can do a camera path. So that's what I'm going to do. And the name here, I'm going to call it New Road. And then we can we have different methods for setting the speed. We can do a next time to the frame, or we can actually set a speed through here. So I like to set a speed, and we're going to use something fairly fast. I'm going to use 200 miles an hour. And then I simply select close. And then notice what we get here. We get these different shots. So what I'm going to do is basically zoom in to this area right here. Decide where I want to take my next shot, and then click plus. And then we can change the speed for here, or we can change the time to the next frame. So now we're just basically racking up shots. So next thing I want to do is zoom into this area right here. Click add another shot. And now what I'm going to do is, I haven't talked about this before, I'm going to use the arrow keys to drive this road. And so what you can do is basically use the arrow keys on your keyboard. The forward button, the up button will move you forward. The back button will move you back. The left button will turn you left. The right button will turn you right. Okay? And then another thing that I haven't talked about is you can hold the middle mouse button down and move the mouse down and up, and it will change your elevation. So this will allow you basically to set your view, and then I can drive down this road at the same elevation and same tilt and take camera shots. So I'm going to continue to take some shots here. So basically what it's going to do is going to do an automatic transition from shot to shot. I'm going to take probably 3 more here. I'll do 1 more here. One more here. And then what I'm going to do here is zoom out to here, turn all the way around, and then see what it looks like from this angle. Take 1 more shot. And then what we do is basically hit our play button, and it's going to take us back to where we started. And as soon as we hit play here, we'll start moving down through the mountains. And then we should come up to our intersection that we created. And then as you notice, as we come up to the road, notice how the trees and the light poles only appear on the road that's close to us. And that's due to what we call level of display. It's only going to show you what's currently close to you. It's only going to render. And if you notice, when we move around here, it's probably going to have a hole in the model. That's because it's trying to re-render that all the time. And to resolve that, what you can do is you can go to Model Explorer, and you can turn on the level of display to high, and then it will render everything in the model at a high level display. And watch as we replay now. Just go back to play here. And you can already tell how the roads are already fully rendered in the background. And as we move in here, you'll notice all the trees and all the light poles and everything is already fully rendered. So a lot of times what I do is when I get ready to play or record my videos, I'll turn my level display on to high, and then as soon as I'm done rendering the video, I'll turn it back off so that I can move around the model quite a bit faster. It's easier on the software and on your computer if you turn your level display off. Okay, so to actually record the video, you simply hit the record button here, and it will bring up the dialogue, and you can either do an uncompressed video, which is basically a raw AVI, you can do a WMV, or a couple other formats there. You can also change the frame rate, and then you can also set your resolution. So that's going to enable you to basically record the video just as you had intended without the dialogues and everything else in the way. And then it will dump out, and you can just go into an editing software, and if you want to put in a front end slide or an ending slide, or if you want to do voiceover, you can do that later on. Okay, so next thing I want to show you is actually how to attach to the SQLite database and consume some of this data from Infrastructure Modeler. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of Infrastructure Modeler, and I'm going to move over to Civil 3D. I already have a drawing open, and what I've done in this drawing is I've edited the drawing settings, and I've changed this to the same state plane coordinate system as the one we're using in Infrastructure Modeler, so we get the same type of units. And now what I want to do is actually attach that SQLite database. And to do that, I'm going to open up our map workspace by keying in map WSpace and turning that on. Okay, now that our map workspace is on, we're going to attach, we're going to connect to the data. And notice here we've got a bunch of different types of connections, and here we've got an SQLite connection, and I'm going to call this one Transportation Overview. And we'll browse to the SQLite database. And here, see, we have our transportation overview. We'll open this up. Click Connect. And it's going to basically read the schema, read the database, and then present us with everything that's in that database. Notice here we've got several different things here. We've got our terrain, we've got water areas, trees. So I'm going to bring in the water areas, the trees, the roads, railways, and then the buildings, and the city furniture. And I'm going to click Add to Map, and we'll close out of this dialog. I'll zoom extents, and then I'll zoom into our area here that we were working on. And notice here we've got all of our little trees, we've got our buildings, we've got our furniture, we've got all of our crossroads, we've got our new road that we added in. Okay. If we actually select, let's say for instance, this piece of furniture right here, and we right click and we do Show Data Table, it's going to tell us a little bit about what this was. If I scroll over, you'll notice that this tells me it was a traffic barrier, and then it was a stop sign. You see we've got other things in here in this same city furniture. Let's say I select this road, right click and go to Show Data Table. You'll notice it's going to tell me the street name. This is Florence Road. So all that information in the SQLite database is right there ready for us to consume. Now we can take our proposed road and we can start modifying it or bring it into Civil 3D, start using it as the basis of our alignment, or at least just use it as a general corridor so that we know basically where this road's going to go. Alright, so that just shows you some of the interoperability and how we can move our data forward from Infrastructure Modeler. In conclusion, Infrastructure Modeler has created a new standard in planning, proposals, and project visualizations. You can now quickly and cost-effectively create real-time 3D models with minimal effort.